Hello, Sarah Sabin, Executive Coach here, and I'm very excited to have with me here today Zhagum Arshad, who is one of my clients, and we will be talking through his experience of working with me today. Zhagum, welcome, and glad to have you here.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So, first question I always like to ask is, why did you want to start coaching?
I think it was a point in my journey where I thought, who am I learning from as a CEO? Because I'm constantly coaching my teams and they're building up their knowledge and expertise. But for me, it's quite lonely because, at the top, you're not learning the way people around you are. They're not developing anymore. And I think in the early days, that's not so much of a problem. But as you grow, you do get to a point where you start to plateau. And as soon as I felt that, and I've got a kind of a growth personality anyway, but I thought I've got to find some way of having a learning mechanism for myself to develop further. But otherwise, I can't, output if I'm not getting any input myself.
And I love that because, all of the highest performers in the world have coaches because they understand that there is always more places to go, another level to get to, etc.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And what did you love most about working with me?
I think having someone who, one, you connect with. So I think from our very first call, I could just see that this is someone who gets me, understands what my pain points are, and has business experience themselves. I'm against coaches who haven't got that real world experience, but have gone straight into coaching. I think it's got to be, some skill that's learned in the trenches, and you've got to be able to reflect on your own experiences to be able to relate to someone else's. A lot of coaches that I've been told about or come across don't have that. I think that they are almost academic, and I think what I found with yourself was that you'd done all of that and had decided to go into coaching, rather than just started out coaching, and I suppose having academic knowledge instead of very practical, the scars of the business world, essential, right? Because that's then relatable. You're like, well, yeah, in my experience, this has happened, and this is how I've dealt with it. And I think in the coaching journey, you need that. You need someone who can impart their own wisdom, and bring that to the table. And in a coaching relationship, that's done very freely. There's no agenda of like, I can't, if I tell you this or I share this, but it's all related to you. There's no personal agenda of like, I need to make myself look, bigger or better, or in any way. It's for your benefit. And I think there's many relationships where that exists.
And what did you learn about yourself during this experience of working with me?
So I think a lot more than I expected. There was a lot of background, I suppose, influence that was unearthed in our sessions quite from right from the start, that I wasn't expecting. I thought we would be much more superficial in dealing with challenges and new learnings, but unearthing things. Sometimes it's like working with a diagnostician who's like, you've come with a pain in your arm, but they're dealing with your diet and saying, well, actually, is it not what you've been inputting, and you've got maybe a mindset which is holding you back. That's very eye-opening in itself. So I think that was really profound to learn that these even childhood influences and people around you have such a profound effect in how you see the world. And I think a lot of that is this huge revelatory kind of moment where you're like, really? That's why I do that? And you need someone to say it to, rather than, I think, I do a lot of journaling, but I think you can't unearth some of the things that a coach can point out to you?
Hmm. Well, it's very hard sometimes to see things in ourselves, which is why coaches have coaches, therapists have therapists, because we all kind of need that outside angle. But that is the core of transformational coaching, is getting to the root of why we do certain things, because when we understand why, we can start to reprogram and change how we do things to serve us better.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. And and I think you've got to be exploring in a structured format, and and with someone who's not afraid to say it to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I suppose in all of your other relationships, people are going to tread on eggshells. They know your kind of sensitive, kind of areas of, like, you don't want to go there. A coach will go there because they're trying to make you better, and so you need to hear it, and it's a safe space. And I think that's a term you taught me, which was, essentially, you create a safe space,
Mm-hmm.
where you come in every session knowing that you can openly discuss whatever is on your mind and whatever is affecting you, and have a very, very candid conversation.
So, in terms of some of the tangible results that you've found from working with me, and that could be things like changing business focus, direction, or anything in that realm, could you tell me a little bit more about that?
So I think there's quite a lot to kind of mention here, really. But I think some of the big highlights for me have been the focus in chasing revenue as being something that has been a really difficult thing to change. So that's something which was through our sessions became a refocus towards profitability rather than chasing revenue. That was really useful to me because that was part of my real growth through this process. And one of the other really big ones, I think, has been the way I coach others. So coaching other people through a lot of their kind of issues, and a lot of my teams, I'm often spending a lot of effort coaching them. And the way that's done, there's now a step formula that I think I picked up from our work on how I do that. Whereas before it was very haphazard. I was like spending hours with different team members and meaning well, but probably, just haphazardly trying to coach them. But now, there's a set formula of how I do that, and it saves me a lot of time. It's appreciated. It has really great results. And that's really a useful thing for me because I enjoy doing it. And it's been good. Like you said, therapists have therapists. If you're coaching your own team members, you need a coach. Otherwise, you're not upping the game in any way. Someone's got to be upping your game for you to be able to be a better coach to your team, and that's essential in today's work environment. We've all got to be coaches to our teams.
Yes, and there is actually a book called The Leader as Coach, which I recommend for anyone listening. But we all get stuck into certain ways of doing things, and that's why it's useful to have that outside perspective, because you're actually kind of systematizing and building upon what you're already doing, but kind of going to the next stage in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in terms of intangible results that you found through working with me, and that's kind of more like mindset shifts and internal shifts, what have you found?
I think the sounding board for my thoughts, every session, having to reflect before and after the sessions on what we're going to talk about, able to talk through big decisions. That was, really interesting for me because normally, you have your channels for doing that, but having someone who's really on your side, understands the kind of background to how you got to that decision point, and being able to run through that before you go in to do, something which might be challenging, is this, whole side of coaching, which was like, the intangibles. You're at mental kind of rest, and then you're able to go and take on a challenge, knowing that next session you can also unwrap that and see how it went, and get the feedback of make improvements. So that those intangibles have been really good.
Okay. What else do you feel that it's really important that people should know about your time working with me, if anything?
I think you've got to find a coach who you have that natural connection with, and you don't know that until you've tried it. And I think a lot of people want coaching and could really benefit from coaching, but they won't take that plunge to actually explore and see, is this someone I can get on with, who gets me? And that initial call that you have, with a new client or potential client, you'd know in that call, right? So you'd be very quickly, you'd get to the point of like, okay, well, there's definitely a connection here. And also I'd add to that investing in yourself, we hear this term thrown around all the time, and people, I think, take it to mean different things. Whereas investing in yourself really means like putting in like effort and work that is exactly related to your needs. And it's not so much about, going on more holidays or, having, sort of spa retreats or something. I think that's not investing in yourself, really. That's taking a break. But investing in yourself means like, work to improve on your weak areas, which we've all got. And we don't know how to actually ever get out of those. We play to our strengths, as we all do that. But how many of us are willing to identify our weak areas that needs help, and then actually having a plan to correct those? And then you'll relapse, fall back into your normal thinking patterns again and again, like I probably do a lot. And then that needs to be pointed out to you. And unless it's a bit of a long-term journey, you haven't got the consistency for someone to point out, 5 months ago, we talked about the same thing. And in that instance, you did something very similar. Therefore, you've got a pattern, and that needs to be addressed. Let's dive into that. That's essential, I think, to real self-development.
And I like how you described it as a journey, right? So you learn something, you apply it, you fall back a bit, you get back on the horse, you carry on. And, a lot of people, when they're approaching skills development, they might think of it as, oh, I'll do this workshop or this one course. And, it's a lot of companies might institute a leadership skills training session, but that doesn't help with long-term change often, because we'll hear something and we'll forget about it. And then we'll often revert back into our own ways, unless we've got that sort of support and accountability structure along the way to help us.
Absolutely.
And final question, would you recommend me as a coach?
I think the kind of coach that businesses need are, I think, few and far between. A lot of people I talk to who are getting coaching have got people who can't really dive deep into their development and their issues. So I think there's only a few coaches out there who have lived the life and can use that to benefit anyone that they're coaching. So I'd say that you're someone who gets the business world and gets the coaching kind of world. You've invested heavily into improving yourself as a coach. So anyone with a growth mindset will really benefit from that, because you're pairing up with someone who's got a growth mindset themselves, and really understands that they've got to be building themselves up further and further, and there's new material constantly that you're able to utilize. So I think wholeheartedly I can recommend that you're someone who's able to bring the best out in people. I think that's a natural ability. I think some people are born with it, and you've recognized that, I think, early on in life, and able to really utilize it. I think a lot of people probably realize it, but it's very late in life. I think that then they're not really able to relate to the business environment anymore. You've come out, I suppose, at a peak level, and said, actually, I've got this ability that I need to be able to utilize and help others. So I think that's a really unique mix. So for me, you know, that's been, I think, you know, a really great thing to discover, that there's someone who can bring the best out in you, and really build upon each session further and further. So that's been an upward spiral, I think, for me, which has been really enjoyable.